Hi there, welcome and thanks for stopping by my website. I'm Celebrant Lindy and I've made this wee video to try and help people just to get an idea of what to expect from the family visit. So if you're watching this video, I'm assuming that you're having to organise a funeral service for somebody that you care about, and I'm really sorry that you're having to do that. But also that you already know that it's me that's going to be conducting your service, and the chances are we've probably already spoken on the phone and we've set up a date and a time when I'm going to come along for the family visit, but this video is just to let you know what to expect from that. Or it might be that the funeral director has pointed you in the direction of my website, which is also great, or if you've just happened upon the website and you're just having a nosy, you are also more than welcome. But the family visit, well, the first thing I'd like to say is that if you're in any way worried or concerned about the family visit, please don't be. I'm not really that scary, but I know from experience that many people do get quite nervous and quite worried, and it's usually because they think they don't know enough about the person's life who's died, or there might be big gaps in that person's life. But in almost 300 funerals, I've never stood up and not had anything to say about anybody. There are always pockets of a person's life that we can find to talk about. So even if you think you hardly know anything, please don't worry, it will be absolutely fine. Or it might be that you've never done this before and you're thinking, I have no idea what's going to happen here. So hopefully this video will help with that. So that's my first thing, please don't worry. But yeah, the visit itself, so what happens? Well, first of all, the first thing that happens is that, well, hopefully the first thing that happens is the kettle goes on and that we all have a wee cup of tea, because everything will flow much more easily if we've all got a wee cup of tea. You lot can have something stronger, but I'll have a cup of tea. But after we've all got a cup of tea, the first thing I do is just try and explain my part in this process, which is really just to help you as a family to say the best goodbye that you can, and I will do my very best to do that for you. And so I explain that the family visit for me is about gathering information that will allow me to go away and write a service. And I gather that information in 3 different steps. So the first step is that I go through the details I've already been given by the funeral director. This sheet is blank just because I didn't want to use somebody's details on it, but this will already be filled in with the details that I've been given from the funeral director, and I just go over them to make sure that I've noted them down correctly. And it will have things like the deceased person's name, their date of birth, their date of death, the place that they died. It will have next of kin contact details, and most importantly it will have the details of the service. So it will have the date and the time and the venue, and I always like to go over those just to make sure that we've all got the same information. And then it might have any wee notes that the funeral director thinks that I should know, and that might be that the family want a hymn, or that somebody else is going to be speaking, or that there's a collection. So just wee details about the service. And so that's the first thing. I just go through that sheet of paper and make sure that I have noted down all the important points correctly. Then I come to this sheet, which is where I start to gather information about the service. And so the first thing I do is I ask the family about what tone they want to set for the service. So this is something you can think about, and I will list all the things that you can think about and start writing down. I'll list them below this video, and that will be helpful for before I come. But yeah, what tone do you want to set for the service? Now, being a celebrant, most people will say they want it to be a wee bit more uplifting, but that doesn't have to be the case. Now, some people will say, well, look, we want it to be about the life of the person, but we don't want it to be full of humour. And so it would be kept very respectful, very reverential, more traditional. but still very life-centred. All my services are very life-centred, which just means they're all about the life of the person. It completely focuses on the person's life rather than anybody else. And so, yeah, so we find out about the tone of the service, and I take my lead from that. Everything is born out of the tone that the family wants to say it. I then ask for an email address from somebody, because once I've written the first draft of the service, it gets sent through to that person, and I always say the same thing: please, I know it's hard, but try and read through it twice. First, you're making sure I haven't made any wee errors with names or dates, etc. And secondly, you're asking, is this right for us? And if it's not, you can make any changes that you choose. It's just a Word document, so you can make those changes yourself, or you can send it to me and I'll make, send a list to me and I'll make them for you. I ask if you're having a wee reception after the service and where that's going to be, so that I can let everybody know. I ask if you're having a collection, donations, and who that's to, so that again I can let everybody know that. I then ask if there are any special instructions, so is there a piper, are there any musicians, so people that I might have to liaise with just to make sure that the service flows the way it should. Then I usually talk about slideshow of photographs, and this very much depends on where the funeral service is being held. But for me, the majority of my services are in the crematorium, and they're either in Falkirk Crematorium or Dildowie Crematorium. Sometimes I go to Perth and Cardross and Clydebank, but most of the time I'm in Falkirk and Dildowie, and both of those crematoriums have the facility for a slideshow of photographs. But both are a wee bit different in how you have to get those photographs to the crematorium, and it usually has to be done a few days beforehand. So that's something you can begin to think about. Do we want a slideshow of photographs during the service? And there are two ways that usually works. The photographs are playing through the whole service, and they're just on a loop. So if you have 20 photographs, they're just on a loop. Or you might just have one photograph up there the whole time, but they're playing throughout the whole of the service. That can be a wee bit distracting because people just want to look at the photographs, but it's completely up to you. Or sometimes there's just one photograph through the talking part of the service, and then when it comes to the wee moment of reflection, where everybody's just taking a moment to remember the person, then the crematorium staff press play and the photographs start running, and that can be, and they just run through to the end of the service, and that can be really nice. So that's something you can start to think about. Do you want a slideshow of photographs if that facility is there? A lot of families would rather wait and do it back at the funeral tea, but it's completely up to you. I just have to let you know that that facility's there. If the crematorium is such that during the committal, which is where we're saying that final farewell, the curtains can close, then I ask the family, do you want the curtains to close? Most families will say yes, but you do get a number of families that say no, we would rather the curtains be left open. So I need to know that, because usually I'm the person that is closing the curtains. And at Falkirk Crematorium, that's not an issue, because the curtains are already they're already around the catafalque from the very start, so there's nothing to see and nothing to hear during the committal at Falkirk Crematorium. And when I come to see you, if you want to see pictures of inside the crematorium, just remind me and I'll show you those. I also ask about the line-up, and this is something you can have a think about, because traditionally the family would line up and everybody would come out and pay their respects. More and more I'm finding that families are asking me to say, look, if you're going back to the reception, then please make your way directly there following the service, and you can pay your respects to the family when they arrive, but if not, you can pay your respects to the family here. And that just means that the family members aren't having to stand there for 15-20 minutes shaking hands with people. They can do it with a wee cup of tea or something stronger back at the funeral tea. But again, that's absolutely up to you as a family. As long as I know what you want to do, then I can let everybody know. So that's something you can have a think about, is the line-up. Next thing we talk about is whether anybody's going to be speaking apart from me, and that's absolutely fine if a member of the family or a friend wants to speak, or 2, 3 people. I just have to, if somebody else is speaking, I just have to time it. Now, if the service is taking place in a hotel or a funeral parlour or a town hall, or a venue other than a crematorium, then we're not usually as restricted with time, and so the eulogy can be whatever length it needs to be, and we can have different speakers and hymns, etc. If it's at the crematorium, we are restricted by time, and different crematoriums have different time slots, but I have to time the service in accordance with what the crematorium allows. And so I always say anything that's out with the eulogy, and the eulogy is the story of the person's life, where we start talking about their life and what they loved and what made them laugh and what they like to do with their time, and any wee stories we can get in there. So anything that's not the eulogy takes away from the eulogy. So for example, if we're talking about Falkirk Crematorium, the service itself, the speaking part is about 20 to 25 minutes long. And so if there are hymns, if there are other people speaking, then I have to allow time for those within that time scale, if that makes sense. So if anybody else is speaking, I need to know who it is and how long they would like. I would usually, unless the family are giving the full eulogy, which is absolutely fine, then they get all that time to work with. But if they just want to get up and say a few words, I would usually give, if it's one person, I would usually give them 3 minutes. And I always say, if I come and stand beside you, then you know that your 3 minutes is up. And if I come and stand beside you and you keep talking and you feel my hand, no, if you feel my hand on your back, then what I'm saying is you really need to bring this to a close, and I'm going to have to do it, because, and some people sort of think, oh, crematoriums, they're just, in and out and in and out, but at the end of the day, it's a funeral service, it's somebody's life, and it's not the first time that my family has been sitting at the top of the hill and had to stay there because the service before. I remember one minister at Falkirk, he was 20 minutes over. And I know what happens if it's a once in a while mistake then, but 20 minutes, that's no mistake. We are professional speakers and we should be able to manage our time. But the worst thing is, and it's not even that, oh, that's my time and I need it. I knew my family were sitting in a funeral car at the top of that hill, and in front of them was the hearse with their mum in it. And they were having to sit there for 20 minutes just looking at that hearse and thinking, why are we not in paying tribute to our mum's life? So I just think it's really disrespectful. So I'm always really strict with my time. And I hope it doesn't come across as I'm trying to, it's all about time, but it is really, really important. So if somebody else is speaking, absolutely fine. I'm actually going to make another video about other people speaking. So that's all I'll say about that. If I can know who it is and how long they want. If it's just a poem or a reading, if I can have a copy of that, then I'll be able to work out how long that's going to take. You're thinking about if you're having any hymns. Because I'm an independent celebrant, that means that I'm open to whatever you want to have in your service. So whereas humanist celebrants don't have any religious content, no hymns, no readings, no prayers, it's your service for your loved ones. So whatever you want to have in it is fine by me. And I love many of the hymns, so I can belt them out like the best of them. So yeah, if you're having a hymn, again, if you're having a hymn, that takes away from the time for the eulogy. So if you were having 2 hymns, we have to set aside 3-4 minutes per hymn. So if you're having 2, then that's 8 minutes that we have to set aside for those. Absolutely fine, as long as you're aware of that. The other thing is, if you're having a hymn, we'll need an organist if we're at the crematorium or at the funeral parlour. There will be an extra charge for that, nothing to do with me, but you can ask your funeral director and they'll be able to tell you. The next thing to think about is music, and there are usually 3 pieces of music played. Again, I'm thinking about the crematorium. If it's another venue, well, we'll talk about that in a minute, but let's assume we're in a crematorium. So there would usually be 3 main pieces of music played. One would be when the coffin is being brought into the chapel. A very important moment, you know, everybody will be asked to stand up, the the song will be put on, and the person will be brought into the chapel. The next song is usually at the moment of reflection. It's where we're just saying to everybody, and it's about midway through the service, we're saying to everybody, take a wee moment and just hold this person in your thoughts. And we usually play a piece of music. You can do that in silence. Some families choose to have a moment of silence, completely up to you. And then the last piece of music is the exit, where at the close of the service. So the last piece of music would be put on, we'd let it play for a moment or 2 depending on our time again, and then everybody will be asked to stand up and the funeral director will come in and lead the family from the chapel, either to go out and wait to receive everybody coming out to pay their respects, or into the cars and away. So 3 pieces of music. Now, there will also be some music playing at the very start when people are just coming into the chapel, and we can talk about that. You can tell me that you want something for that, or I can just play an ambient piece of music. If the service is elsewhere, if it's in a funeral parlour, if it's in the town hall, if it's in a hotel, then people will turn up earlier than they would if it was at the crematorium. And so I always like to have a playlist of songs on a loop so that when people arrive there's some music. So I mean, sometimes if you're in a hotel, people will start turning up an hour before the service begins, and so it's nice to just have some music playing in the background. So I would usually ask the family to give me a list of songs, or they'll say to me, just pick something from the same era as we've been talking about. So it might be music from the 60s, it might be music from the 80s, whatever. In terms of who organises the music, if I'm your celebrant, I do all that. So you don't have to worry about anything. You don't have to download anything or burn any discs or buy anything. Just tell me what it is you want and I will organise it through my sound system. If it's another celebrant, then ask the celebrant, because I know not all celebrants organise their own music. Some will ask the family to provide the CDs. So just make sure that you know what's expected of you there. And so that's all the logistics of the service organised. So once I have all those written down, I then start taking note of names and dates, important names and dates for the family. And so I start off by asking the parents' names of the person who's died, where they were born, where the deceased person was born, if they had any brothers and sisters, and I get all their names. And sometimes families will say she did have brothers and sisters, or they did have, but we don't want them mentioned. That's absolutely fine. I will mention or not mention whatever you want me to. And yeah, so please don't be worried about saying we don't want certain people mentioned in the service. That's completely up to you. I ask if they were married, or if they had a partner. If they were married, when did that take place? Where did it take place? And again, sometimes there's been previous marriages and they might want it mentioned, might not want it mentioned. Again, it's up to you. I ask about children and their names and their dates of birth. Was the person mother-in-law or father-in-law to anybody? Grandchildren, get the grandchildren's names. And what did the grandchildren call the person? Was it granny? Was it pop? Was it nanny? Whatever. Because that's important. If I stand up and say, oh, and she was nana to Emma and Zoe, and actually she was granny, then it creates a disconnect. So I need to get these things right. So once I have all the important names and dates, Then I move on to the third step, which is this here, and as you can see it's just a blank piece of paper. Well, it's 5 blank pieces of paper actually, and that's what I use to write the life story of the person. So I just start off with asking the question, do you think he or she had a happy childhood? And from there, from that answer, I then just build upon it. Leads to more questions and more answers, and to stories and to anecdotes and to memories. And we just really, it goes in chronological fashion, so we just start at the birth and we take a walk through this person's life and find out about the things that they liked, and the people that they liked, and what they like to do with their time, and where they like to go on holiday, and so just all the wee things that made them who they were. And I just keep writing, and I just keep asking questions, and I say, oh, stop, what do you mean by that? And from that, as I say, we compose, or from this comes this really beautiful life story of the person. And then when I've got that, then I go back to my original sheet and I just fill in a couple of more things, and that is any thank yous that the family wants me to give. So this is something you can have a think about. I would say a general thank you to everybody that's there, and to everybody that's sent messages and cards and flowers, and to the funeral director and to the staff at the crematorium or the hotel. But sometimes family will want me to say a more personal thank you, or a specific thank you to carers or to family members, whatever. So it's important that I note those down so that I can include them. I ask about dress code. Sometimes families want a certain colour or a flash of colour, or they'll just say no black. So that's important for me to know so that I can respect that. And then really the last question is just, is there anything that you want me to know, or you think that I should know that I haven't asked you about? And then, as I say, I take that away, I write it up into the first draft of the service, I email it through to the family. They have a read through, first to make sure I haven't made any wee errors with names or dates, secondly to make sure it's right. They make any changes they want to make, or they send me a list of changes, and we just go back and forward until the service is right. So that's the family visit. I hope it's been helpful. I will list some of the things that you can think about before I come, but really it's the tone of the service, so the tone that you want to create, whether you want to have a slideshow of photographs if that facility is available, if you want to have a line-up afterwards for people to come and pay their respects, if anybody else is going to be speaking and who those people are and what they're going to be saying. Are you having any hymns, and if so, what hymns are you having? What 3 pieces of music are you having, or if it's in a hotel or funeral parlour, what additional pieces of music are you having? And what thank yous you would like me to give, and if there's a dress code. So these are the things you can begin to write down. You can start writing down, and that will be really helpful before I come to have a note of those. And then if you want to go on and write things like the parents' names and where the deceased person was born, and brothers and sisters and children and their dates of birth, if you want to start gathering all that information, then that will also be very helpful, but I can also get that as we go through. So that's the family visit. I hope this video has been helpful in just putting your mind at rest as to what it will entail, and if there's anything that I haven't covered or you want to ask me, then please don't hesitate to drop me a line at hello@celebrantlindy.co.uk, or give me a phone. My number's on the website, or you might already have it from the funeral director or from myself. So please don't hesitate to get in touch. But if not, I'll see you soon for the family visit, and thanks for watching.